Amy Moses, ladies and gentlemen. How are you today?
I am wonderful. How are you, Shawn?
Awesome. I'm fantastic. Fantastic. Did you like the intro music?
I do. I can't stop smiling. I loved the intro music, but I loved even more seeing you in action.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Well, Amy, welcome to Lending with Purpose. These are conversations that we have with clients and friends, introduction to various forms of information and professionals like yourself, resources that we use, we look for, never knew existed, or wanted to learn more about. That was a mouthful, but welcome today. So I say all that to say we're introducing our networks to each other. And so I'm glad to have you on today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on, Shawn. And I just want to say it has been a pleasure over the past year for me to get to know you and to work alongside you on the MMBBA Board of Governors and have you on our marketing committee. You've been such an asset to that association. So it's been my honor to work alongside you for the past year.
Oh, thanks. You too. It's been great, refreshing, and I'm glad you're leading the charge on that. I don't know if you heard me this morning. I said what did I say? I said I'm up for the ideas, but I don't know if I want to take on the task of
Right. Well, you took on a lot of tasks last year. That's why I was like, I'll volunteer. I'll do it.
yeah. So I'm gonna start with a quick story. And actually, I remember I said earlier, I was like, oh, I got something for you. So every week, it just a story comes to me, and I'm thinking about what I should say. And so this week, I don't know if it's really a story, but remember last week I complimented you on your one of your posts in which you said every year you create a word.
Mm-hmm.
I think I got my word.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. What is it?
So my 2023 word uh is grace. So at first it was going to be accountability, but I think I'm actually going to wrap grace or wrap accountability into grace. And the reason I say that is because the expectations that a lot of times we have for ourselves, like sometimes we don't like give ourselves flowers, and we don't, look to sort of reflect on some of the wins that we've had and such, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we beat ourselves up pretty badly. Um, and the way that I'm going to use grace this year is to give myself grace,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if I can give myself grace, I can give everybody else grace. And I think I probably should look up exactly what the dictionary says that word means. In my heart, I know what it means to, like, kind of, let go and give sort of a little bit of forgiveness, forgiving yourself and such. Um, but that's like my word this year, and just really, it's more selfish to do that for myself and not kind of be so hard on myself, and it's to start celebrating some wins and smaller wins, um, and seeing uh, in the heat of sort of competition, in the heat of being the best version of myself, so to speak, seeing all the sort of good in it, as opposed to the negative parts in it that kind of sometimes motivate us to try to do better and be better. I feel like that uh, I can be a better leader for my family. I can be a better leader for everybody else that's around me too, as well, that I do business with and such. So, thank you for that. And I wanted to let you know that that's my word, and you need to hold me accountable when you see me kind of maybe get down or something like that, or start to be too hard on myself or someone else, and by having lack of patience or something like that. But thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm glad you said you wanted me to hold you accountable because I wrote it down, grace and accountability, as soon as you said it. And I'm also glad, Shawn, you circled around to, at first you said it was a selfish word, but then you circled around to you'll be a better person for your family, for your colleagues, because I don't think it's selfish, right? If you're giving yourself grace about things, then you're going to show up better for the others in your circle and in your community. And I thought about that myself because, as I shared on the post, my word is discipline. And when one of my friends saw that post and saw that I had chosen discipline, she sent me something that said, everyone must choose one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And I think about that a lot now every day. And I don't want to have all of those regrets. That's one of the reasons why I want to be disciplined. But I slept in a little bit longer than I wanted to the other day. And I thought I wasn't disciplined, as much as I wanted to be getting up. But I did it because I was up late working the night before. And I thought, I'm giving myself that grace, right? I'm not going to beat myself up because I wasn't as disciplined. I'm not going to sit around regretting it. There was a good reason for it, right? And that gave me a better attitude and perspective going into the next day. So definitely not a selfish word. And I love that you chose that one. So I can't wait to chat with you about it throughout the year.
Yeah, yeah. Because I could do better. Because like I would potentially, maybe not, but possibly say, well, Amy, how could you not get up? Like
Right.
you said you were gonna do this, just make it happen. And so then I got to think about it. Like just because maybe that's my mentality doesn't necessarily mean that that's your mentality. But also, I'm probably not doing it perfectly myself either, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so who am I to project that on you? And so yeah, let's that's good. That's good stuff. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about more than just grace and discipline today. Um, but Amy, also, I'm mastering the art of the introduction. Sort of. I'm getting there. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll roll it out one of these days, but I'm not going to introduce you. You're going to tell us who you are, what you do, and then we'll get in our conversation.
Oh, I love it. All right. As you said, Amy Moses, I like to always start my introduction by saying I grew up on a farm in the middle of Iowa because that always, for some reason, shocks people. I don't know why. And this will tie around to what we talk about at the end, which I just thought, based on a question I know that you're going to ask me. But that's where I learned my work ethic. Was growing up on that farm, walking beans, picking up rock, spending a lot of time out in the field, and had no idea. I had a lot of dreams of what I wanted to do, be a country music singer and a sports broadcaster and all that. But as far as like a more realistic job, I wasn't sure. I ended up in mortgage, as most people do, by accident. And then I've spent the past 20 plus years first working for a lender. I worked for GMAC Mortgage in their servicing center, spent a decade there in Waterloo, Iowa. It seems like most people have some tie to GMAC back in the day, either the Waterloo office, the Horsham office, or somebody who used to work for GMAC. Then spent another decade at MERS. While I was living in Colorado. A lot of people are probably familiar with MERS, Mortgage Electronic Registration Systems, Inc. Had a small stint at SnapDocs and then came over to Escrow Tab. So that's kind of been my journey through mortgage and my journey through living and growing up in Iowa on the farm, moving to Colorado, and then moving out here to Northern Virginia. So lived a little bit of everywhere as well.
Welcome to the area. How long have
Thank
you been
you.
in Virginia?
It's been 6 years now.
Okay.
But yeah, wow, when I drive places in Maryland, especially, I'm like, I have no idea where I'm going. Thank goodness for GPS.
And I've been living in Maryland with 20 years now, and I'm the same way because I'm a Virginia boy, and it's taken me such a long time to really claim that I'm a Maryland guy now at this point. But yeah, yeah. Tell us. So let's get into it. So today we're going to be talking about mortgage e-closings, and we're going to talk about IPEN. You mentioned Escrow Tab earlier. What's Escrow Tab?
Sure. Yeah, so Escrow Tab is the leading IPEN solution, and my shirt here shows IPEN. So it stands for in-person electronic notarization. And that term, that acronym, is new to a lot of people. I always like to say that RON is the media darling, remote online notarization. This is not RON. This is something different. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But basically, you're signing the documents in person electronically. And Escrow Tab was really born out of realizing where lenders were stuck, why lenders weren't moving down that e-closing path. So it was co-founded by three guys, one who's a lender, one who's developed several SaaS platforms, and then our president, Brendan Weiss, who was COO at MERS. So we worked alongside each other at MERS. And when Brendan was placed in there, he was asked to figure out this whole MERS e-registry thing. So a lot of you listening may have heard of the MERS e-registry. It's been around since 2006, but it wasn't getting a lot of adoption. People weren't originating e-notes. And so we set about to figure out why not, right? Well, we realized a lot of things along the way. One was there wasn't investor and warehouse lender acceptance. One was it was very cost prohibitive. One was lenders didn't want to take the time to implement everything and go through change management. And then another one was there was a lot of finger pointing between lender and settlement. So as we really dug in to figure this out, we did a lot of education across the country. I put on e-mortgage boot camps. We worked on the back end as far as getting more investors and warehouse lenders to integrate with the MERS e-registry. But there were still some problems that persisted. And when Brendan and the other guys co-founded Escrow Tab, that was what they really set out to do, right? Was to take all of this knowledge from what we knew were some of the problems and try to address it with Escrow Tab.
Understood. And so is this for is it e-closings?
It is. Yep. It's a form of e-closing. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's talk about that, like, because also want to make sure that the consumer, right, just
Sure.
the average person that's not in our industry understands what this all means. Like, what is let's talk a little bit about e-closings. Like, what is an e-closing?
Sure. So what consumers are probably used to right now is you walk into the your closing and you have your stack of documents that you're signing with your pen and your paper, right? That's traditionally what it's been. I feel like those of us, Shawn, in the mortgage industry kind of get this bad rap from consumers. Like, when are you guys going to move in to this century, right? And do things electronically. Like most other industries have moved on. I would say not medical. Like, I'm still shocked at all the paper forms I have to fill out when I go to any kind of a doctor's office. So I say we're kind of the two holdouts, like medical and mortgage. But an e-closing is when you're signing some or all of your package electronically. So it could be that you're signing some of the docs up front electronically. Some of the consumers watching have probably done that, where they sign some of the documents at home and then go to a closing to wet sign some of them. Or it could be, as in the case of IPEN, you go to the closing and you're signing documents. You're still in person, face to face, but you're signing documents electronically. Or, as I mentioned, Ron earlier, where the whole thing takes place remotely. Like, we're sitting here just like this. I'm at my home, you're at your home, and we're doing that mortgage closing remotely. So there's a couple of different ways and a few different variations on that, but those are the main different types of e-closings.
Got it. And so I remember, I was telling you about how this show got started.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I was, throughout the pandemic at the beginning, we were like freaking out. Like, number one, how are you going to show houses? Right? Sheltered in place. There's rules against us being out and about and things like that. So that was the first thing. So we solved that problem on how to show houses. All right, we get ratified contracts, right? Now, how are we going to close, like, and get these homes out of escrow? Like, how are you going to transfer ownership of these properties? And so we actually we figured that out too as well. Folks masked up and they went face to face, and they slid the documents under the door or through the door, took a picture of the photo ID or whatever they did.
Right.
When we'd come into an office, you'd be on one side of a shield and on the other, and we'd be masked up, and they made it happen. Then I noticed that we started to lenders started to adopt these e-closings. So I remember I had a family that was relocating. They were in the foreign services, and they were relocating from the Middle East back to the United States. And so we were able to do that. And at that point, it was like an aha moment. Like really, like, we should have been doing this all along. Like, what happened? Why hadn't we been doing it? Like, and it was, we were able to do so. But everyone talks about like security and things of that nature. Like, let's talk about like how secure these processes are. Like, what are the security measures in place to protect the financial information during the e-closing process? Because I probably believe that our industry was very scared about losing that sensitive data, and that's what took us so long to get to this point.
Of course. Yeah. There's so much personal information on those loan documents. And you're exactly right, Shawn. What COVID did for the mortgage industry is it provided that sense of urgency for lenders. So we had started this whole project when I was back at MERS of trying to gain adoption and educate the industry. But everybody's kind of like, we'll wait and see how it goes, right? We'll wait for somebody else to do it, and I'll only do it when I have to. But COVID provided that sense of urgency of, oh, wow, we didn't think that we would actually need to do it. So that was very beneficial. And if you think about, the paper process right now, let's say you're closing in an office. Okay, well, somebody still has those pieces of paper, and then they need to be, scanned or uploaded, emailed securely to somebody else, or they're going to be FedExed. They could be lost, right? Everybody's heard the scary stories of, any type of personal shipment we have, right? Getting lost. People joke about notes falling off the back of a FedEx truck. So there's a lot of transfer, either electronically, which we know isn't always safe, via email, or paper, where somebody could get a hold of that personal information. So with electronic closings, there's a lot of systems and safeguards to keep it secure. And that's not to mention, like, let's say there's a mobile notary going out to your home for the closing, right? And then they're driving back somewhere, or they're driving to a FedEx to ship those. Like, what could happen between now and then? They stop at Starbucks and somebody steals those documents out of their car. So with e-closing, there are secure systems where the documents are uploaded for signing. And then once those documents are signed and notarized, they go into what's called an e-vault, or an electronic vault. And those are built to be just like you'd think of a vault at a bank, right? Extremely secure. And then when those documents are transferred from one company to another, right? If there's a correspondent lender that's purchasing that loan, it's transferred from vault to vault. And so it's all very secure, and there's a lot of detail behind it. But when you think about all the places those pieces of paper could end up, like, there isn't that possibility with where those electronic documents could end up, because they're all housed in a couple of systems.
Got it. And so Escrow Tab, you all chose IPEN, right? Not Ron. So what's the difference? So, like, tell us what IPEN is, why it's important to the mortgage industry, but also kind of tie in, like, the differences between that and the the Ron service.
Sure. Yeah. And one reason we chose IPEN was because there are not a lot of IPEN providers out there. So it was more of an open market. There are a lot of Ron providers. And Ron, first of all, I mentioned investor acceptance earlier, right? It's not accepted by all investors. They don't accept Ron signed loans. Not all states is it legal in as well. And that's changed a lot over COVID, right? First of all, a lot of states put emergency legislation in place in order to allow for Ron loans. And then more states have been passing bills to legalize Ron, but it's still only legal in 40 states. So California is a big one, right, where it's not legal yet. So Ron loans can't be done there. In almost all 50 states, IPEN is legal, or there are IPEN laws on the books. So we can reach a lot greater consumer base with IPEN. A couple of the key differences when you're performing it. So you're still meeting in person, which we've heard the borrower loves. Studies show that over 80% of borrowers still want to meet in person. They want that face-to-face guidance. The title company still wants that face-to-face interaction. The LO still wants it, and the realtor still wants it. So IPEN really allows that local transaction that a mortgage loan is to happen in the way it's still happening, right? It's just more tech forward, it's more secure, it's faster, and it allows for fewer errors. So before I answer the Ron piece, I just want to point this out, because we work with lenders, title companies, and notaries. And when we do some of our demos to notaries, who are the end users of our software, Shawn, there's been clapping and cheering and like praising the Lord. Like, it's been wild, because I was on a call with a notary the other day who said literally her jaw dropped. And she said, this is what it's like, my life will literally change. And it will, because notaries won't be printing and reprinting, right? And correcting documents and driving to FedEx, all of that they won't have to deal with. So their life will truly be changed.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of what IPEN and Ron, right? Everything's remote. And so we encourage lenders, some lenders say we have a Ron solution. That's great, right? But you should also be offering IPEN. So a lot of borrowers, some might still want to sign in paper, some want to meet in person, some have the desire or the need, like the circumstance that you mentioned a little bit ago, right? The need to do it remotely. And so we really encourage lenders to provide all of the options. So when it's remote, there's a lot more technology. Also, one other difference that the lender has to have, right? They have to have a laptop with a computer or with a, not a computer, sorry, a
camera.
Camera. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm pointing to the camera, which you don't have to, right? For IPEN, you don't even have to have your own device, right? The notary, the electronic notary brings that device to sign on. And there's another study, I forget the stat, but a lot of borrowers don't have their own personal laptop, or especially a laptop with a working camera. So they're not able to close remotely. So there's some technical barriers as well for the borrowers to be able to do, Ron.
I see. And I could see it would be very efficient for a lender as well. So instead of having to scan all those papers and documents, they just get uploaded and I can just sort them and they're in my system, and you probably have them sorted just about the way that we'd like to have them sorted anyway, I would assume.
Yep. Yeah. You can do the sorting right in the escrow tab system if you want to rearrange pages. One cool feature is that if there's a mistake on a page, you can just clear just that page.
Wow.
And start over. Also, let's say, I know I've heard stories where we get to chit-chatting, right? Like we're chit-chatting at the closing and there's a missignature, right? Well, you can go on to the next page, but if I'm the notary, you're the borrower, Shawn, I get to the end of it, it says 2 missignatures in this package, and it will show me what pages they're on, and it won't let me complete that package until I go back and have you sign in the spots that we missed because we were chatting.
Wow. That's really cool. So I was sitting here thinking about DocuSign does that, like, or any, e-signature, situation. So like, what are those, like, do you all have any like limitations and restrictions that you're looking to overcome now at this point, with IPEN?
So, well, one thing I want to point out about DocuSign first, real quick. So when you ask about security, I didn't mention this. So our signatures are all electronic using a stylus, a Bluetooth stylus on the tablet. So it's your forensically verifiable signature. So if you sign, Shawn Williams on the tablet with the stylus and you sign Shawn Williams on the piece of paper, there are 20,000 pressure points that are in your signature. And so a forensic analyst can look at that and know that it was really your signature on the tablet, just like they could on a piece of paper. Whereas with DocuSign, we do the click to sign and mine will show up Amy L. Moses, but it looks nothing like what my actual signature is, right? So it could have been somebody else doing that.
I was going to say, you may not even be the one that did the mouse click.
Right. So that's another security feature of Escrow Tab specifically that differentiates us from other IPEN platforms is that forensically verifiable signature. So I wanted to point that out. Sorry, can you repeat the second part of your question?
Well, yeah, just are there any like limitations or restrictions that you've seen that you're working to solve?
Yes, one of them is just education, right? Still, I did a lot of thought leadership last year about what IPEN is, but there's still a lot of people, lenders, title companies, notaries, realtors, right? Kind of everybody within the ecosystem who isn't aware of it. And so we're still trying to educate people. One of the other ones is really trying to get, especially lenders, to understand the ease of use. So how we're set up is that title companies really, I don't want to use the term bear the burden because it's so easy, it's not a burden, but bear the responsibility of this, right? Where title is saying, yes, we would like to do this. And so they're the ones that contract with Escrow Tab in the most cases. And they will work either with their signing service or their mobile notaries or their closing attorneys, right, to implement this. And they go to a lender and say, hey, lender, would you accept IPEN signed documents? And if the lender isn't generating that e-note, the electronic promissory note, the lender just has to say yes. They don't have to do anything else. They just give their title company permission, and the title company implements that new electronic process. So we're really just trying to get over that barrier of lenders thinking it's so much work for them, right? And they have to change all of their processes. We're saying, hey, do everything like you would if it was your paper process, but it's not, it's electronic. If they're generating the e-note, then there's a little bit more work on their part. So it can be done either way. But I would say that's one of the barriers, is really just getting people to understand the flow of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we encourage people that if you're a lender, ask your title company if you're doing this. If you're a title company, talk to your lender. We had a title company actually here in Virginia reach out to us, and I asked, oh, how did you hear about us? And they said, well, we had a lender talk to us and a notary who's Escrow Tab enabled, and came and said, hey, you should take a look at this. And then an MI company. So we're really encouraging everybody to talk to their trading partners, their partners in business, and then get that kind of chain going.
That's awesome. And so lastly about the, I think you did a great job. I guess the barrier and the challenge is getting to as many people as you possibly can to tell them about it. But I've learned a lot about IPEN. It makes sense. It sounds great. We were talking earlier, and something that I wholeheartedly believe in is the customer experience is paramount. Like, it's everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can see how this could lend for an even better closing experience for the borrower as well. Because, like you mentioned earlier, you walk in with that big stack of papers and it's there. That's daunting.
Right.
To just think that you're gonna have to flip through them all, and people think that it's like a novel that you have to take an hour to read through, and typically a novel takes depending upon how fast you read, but a month or something like that. It's
Right.
tons of pages, and so I get it, I got it. And so, last question about this, and then I'll move on. But like, what happens if something, like if there's a problem at closing with IPEN? Like you answered that earlier, I think, but like, what happens after the fact on it? Like some document got messed up and needs to be changed out or whatever. Like what happens with IPEN?
Yeah. So when you said a document got messed up, I'll just address that part first, because that's one of the things that notary and title love, right? If there's a change, let's say there's a mobile notary who's driving to the closing. If there's a change with the docs and the mobile notary is on their way, the documents are just changed behind the scenes, right? Title is doing that from their laptop while the mobile notary is driving to the closing. So they don't have to reprint, make corrections afterwards, nothing. Like, they show up, they log in on their tablet to their Escrow Tab account, and the correct package is there. So that's a huge, huge savings in time and, the quality control of the package. Like I mentioned, things can be erased during the signing if there's a mistake that's made. Something could be initialed like it is on a paper document. If there's the worst case scenario and something doesn't work, things can be signed on paper like they normally would. But there's a lot of features built in to make sure that corrections and changes can be addressed before, during, and after.
That's really cool. So I'm sure everybody's out there listening, like, I can't wait to go out and do a mortgage loan now. Just so I can go through this IPEN experience.
That's what we want. And we have one of our customers who is a bank, and they said, you know what? Our borrowers think we're cool now, because we walk in with just the tablet, right? And the stylus, and they sit down and they sign it all electronically. And they're like, they look at us differently.
Yeah.
When we offer that, and they think it's fun, right? And of course you want the mortgage closing to be fun. It's a huge celebratory moment, right? Absolutely. And so I think this adds that element of fun to it when you do everything electronically.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Amy, how can we help you? Like, what do you need? How can we help you? Tell us how to connect with you as well. Yeah. How can we help you?
Yeah, I would just say how anybody can help, right, is to, like I alluded to earlier, talk to your partners in the business about it, right? So that you're asking them, hey, are you using Escrow Tab? Are you originating IPEN signed documents? Are you accepting them, right? Just to get that conversation going. I was recently asked for what my New Year's resolution was for Escrow Tab. And I said, I just want us to be in the conversation so that anytime anybody's talking about e-closing, Escrow Tab's IPEN solution is being discussed because people know that it's there. And so we're relying on everyone listening as the community to really help us with that, right? To bring us up in the conversation, like that example with notaries and title companies doing to lenders. And I've met a lot of realtors who are super excited about this option as well. And so we encourage, realtors to talk to their lenders about it, and the title companies too.
So who's the client? Is it the title company and the lender, or one or the other?
Usually it's the title company.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And as far as how to get a hold of us, so you can email me, Amy Moses, AMYMOSES at escrowtab.com. We also have, of course, our website, escrowtab.com, and there's free demos available. There's one option that's a demo just for notaries. We give a specific demo of how their part would work. And then we do another demo for lenders and title companies about how it would work for them. So very specific for our three audiences. I also encourage you to visit our LinkedIn page and follow us there on Escrow Tab, because we're always giving updates. I mentioned the legislation earlier. There are still some states that we're working to be approved in specifically. We just got approved in North Carolina, so that was a huge deal for us. We've had lenders waiting to use us in North Carolina, and so we make those type of announcements on our LinkedIn page.
That's awesome. So Amy Moses at escrowtab.com.
Yep.
All right.
You got it.
Escrowtab.com. We're going to put that up there. No, this was great. So here we go. $1 million question. You ready?
I'm ready.
It's a good thing you came on this show later on, because in the early stages, Amy, this would be such a surprise question for everyone, because I just intentionally didn't tell people. But that wasn't fair. I wasn't playing fair, wasn't playing right. So if you've been on the show before and you want to give it a try again, I welcome you to come back.
You can have a do-over.
Yeah, you can have a do-over. I welcome you to come back. But you get one person, one question. Who would it be and what would you ask? One person, one question. Who would it be? What would you ask?
Shawn, since you told me this the other day, I've been thinking about it a lot, and I can't find any answer that wouldn't result in me getting emotional.
Yeah, that's why I don't surprise anyone anymore.
Right.
Just that.
But I was like, they're all gonna end in the same result. So who I settled on would be my grandpa Bert. He, I mentioned growing up on a farm. He was part of we had a family farm, and he had muscular dystrophy, and he was diagnosed with that. I mean, when my mom was a teenager, right? And I don't ever remember him walking without a cane, but soon it was in a motorized cart. He was never like in a, traditional wheelchair, right? He always had this motorized cart. I never once heard him complain. I never once saw it slow him down, right? His profession was farming. It totally robbed him of his profession, right? And he was at every one of my basketball games. He was at church every Sunday, at the head of our Sunday dinner table, right? Him and my grandma were always going out with friends. They were RVing all over the country. Like, he still did all of those things, despite in the end having no use of his legs. That's where the muscular dystrophy affected him. And I would like to ask him, like, how in the midst of all of that did he keep up his positivity? Right? Because he passed away when I was in college. When you're younger, you really don't think about those things, right? Yeah. Like, he was my first grandparent to pass away. My last one just passed away a year ago. So it was different, thinking about things your grandparents are going through when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s. But like when you're young, you don't really think about that. It was just how it always was. So now that I'm older, like I've been reflecting on it in the midst of what was now, we'd call it handicap, disability. We never said those words. It was just how this was Grandpa Bert, right? Because it never even appeared there was anything wrong, right? So I would just ask him, like, how did you do that? How did you show up for us, right? Your family, day after day, with such a positive attitude and live your life to the fullest?
Wow. It's a great question. And I appreciate the story too, as well. Like, some people, they just kind of suck it up, and take what life gives them and make the best out of it. Right. Because, I don't know your grandpa, obviously, and would probably think that he's just like, I just want to control my destiny. He'd probably give you a much different answer than that, and just like kind of focus on what he can control. But yeah, that's a tough one, because a lot of times you put yourself in other people's shoes and try to think if you could live the same way. So shout out and kudos to your grandfather, especially running a farm. I know that's probably a whole nother conversation that we could have on a podcast here about how that works. Because we share stories about our gardens and such now, but the farm operating the way that he did, that's pretty amazing.
Exactly. When I was thinking about it this morning, he was still able to do, what we do in the mortgage industry, like the networking part of it, right? Like hosting the guys from the co-op for coffee, right? Yeah. Hosting the cattle buyer for coffee, right? Like all of that, like that's what he was still able to do. And so maybe that part of it is fed into too, like what kept him going, right? Like you mentioned, the things he could control, the non-physical aspects of his job too. So
that's really cool. So yeah, I love Thursdays. Thursdays gives me so much energy because I get an opportunity to speak to folks like Amy. It would be such a shame that we have these folks in our network and not introduce them to you in the world. And so Amy, thanks again for joining us. Just if there's anything that I can do for anyone to help in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out. Everybody still remain as safe and as healthy as you possibly can. And we'll be back here next week. So trying not to miss a week. But yeah, we're here every week. And Amy, thank you so much. This was a great conversation. And speaking of,
thank you, Shawn. Can I ask you a real quick $1 million question?
Of course.
Are you ready to sign your loan documents electronically?
Yes, all the time.
Awesome. All right. And would you be ready to offer that to your borrowers?
Yes, all the time.
All right. I love it.
Yeah, we fight for it now. Like, yes, any chance, anything to make life, more convenient, that makes sense. Absolutely. As as long as it's safe and responsible. Yeah, absolutely. It wouldn't make sense not to do so.
Good. Well, thank you. This has been such a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Shawn. And thank you for what you do for the industry with highlighting different people and methods and companies and process improvements, all of it. So I appreciate that.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And I'm going to end this thing. I ask you to hang on with me for one more minute, and we will be seeing you later. Thanks again, Amy. And everybody have a great day.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.